The Tennessee Titans 2024 season has come to an end, and luckily for them, it was so bad they have the first overall pick, which I guess is one of the few bright sides, I think, looking back at the 2024 season. My name's Tyler, here with my brother Ryan, and we are going to preview what the 2025 offseason looks like for the Tennessee Titans. But before we get into that, if you like the work that Ryan and I put out and you want to help grow the channel, the easiest way is hitting that subscribe button, tackling that bell to get notified when new videos come out, and leaving a like and a comment. Let us know what you would like to see the Titans do this offseason before the 2025 NFL draft. So it's been such a long season. I got used to the normal little intro there. But
Yeah.
looking forward to the 2025 offseason, starting off with the Titans here. And let's pull up the slide deck here, Ryan, because let's kind of quickly recap where they ended up in the 2024 season. And it's kind of wild to me. Looking at their defensive team stats, I had to check this multiple times because it just doesn't make sense. But they only gave up, they were second in total yards allowed. And one of the stats I saw, so only 6 times this season, they gave up more than 350 total yards of offense. And if you look at the final rankings of total team offense, 350 yards would have been about 12th to 13th, 11th to 13th, so slightly above average. So what's
Mhm.
wild to me is they gave up slightly above average, slightly above average offensive performance only 6 times. And I'm using that statistically because they definitely gave up several 400 plus yard offensive performances of those 6. But that's what's wild to me, though, is defensively, teams did sometimes struggle to move the ball against them, but they just kept shooting themselves in the foot with
Yeah.
the offensive play and with Will Levis. And I think Will Levis had 13 touchdowns, 12 picks. He had several fumbles to go along with that as well. Let me find that here, actually, because I have the stats up. 10
Well, and it was
fumbles.
all
Holy cow, 10 fumbles.
jeez, that's
Uh,
a lot.
yeah. So, and that was obviously the biggest bugaboo. And that's when we talk about previewing the offseason here in the next couple slides as well. That quarterback position is the number one position that they're going to address overall. And it's a primary concern overall
Yeah.
for Pine Callahan and the team.
Yeah, and that's it wasn't even just the total number of turnovers, which was obviously a lot. It was also the timeliness of those turnovers too, where it felt I go all the way back to week 1 in that Chicago Bears game where they had a lead and probably should have won that game, but a blocked punt gets returned for a touchdown. Will Levis throws a pick six late in that game, and it's a 24-17 loss for the Tennessee Titans. And that to me, I think is just like you said, they constantly found ways to kind of shoot themselves in the foot and do things that would help them lose these games. And yeah, this defense is good. I do think they had a decent pass rush. Harold Landry is a good edge rusher. They had some solid interior defensive line play as well with Tavondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons. So those guys are doing their jobs up front. Offensively, Calvin Ridley, I believe, was 1,000-yard receiver. Tony Pollard, I believe, led the league in rushing yards after contact. And so that was a really good stat there. Would love to see Brian Callahan get this offensive line playing better, so that way Tony Pollard doesn't have to lead the league in rushing yards after contact. But I think with a younger offensive line, especially an offensive line that's learning a new system, I think that is going to be improved going forward. And not that this team is a perfect destination for a young rookie quarterback, but I think you look at what they currently have, and I would be a pretty happy rookie quarterback going to this destination. You have an offensive minded head coach whose father was one of the most famous offensive line gurus of all time. You have a improving offensive line. You have a good running back in Tony Pollard. You have your receiver in Calvin Ridley. You have Chigoziem Okonkwo, a good, reliable, uber athletic tight end, and most importantly, you have a really solid defense that you can go and rely on. So I still feel like that this team played way below the talent that they have on their roster, and all in all, they are a pretty good situation for a young quarterback.
Yeah. Well, and also too, I lived in Nashville for 5 or 6 years. Just a good city to go and live in. They
Yeah.
really like their sports teams. It's kind of more of a hockey town, which is kind of weird to say. But that being said, that there's also a lot of Titans fans in there as well. So I and that's kind of one of the things that kind of going into the previewing who's going to be potentially leaving the team here. Like if we go on to the next slide here. And so this is not every free agent, if we're being fully honest. It's we didn't include long snapper in there, for example. We didn't include some of the guys that like are practice squads that never even played as well.
Yeah.
But these are the vast majority of the guys that had some pretty significant amount of time. Talking about that young offensive line, Dylan Verdun, he's going to be a free agent as well. A couple other offensive guys and like the receiver position too, on like just going to be important for a rookie quarterback coming in. Do they bring back Tyler Boyd? Do they bring back Nick Westbrook-Akine? Nick Westbrook-Akine didn't break 500 receiving yards, but he did have 9 touchdowns on the season, which is kind of wild. Tyler
Mhm.
Boyd, he was pretty ineffective overall. I think part of it too is also the quarterback play didn't help him out as
Yeah.
well. Mason Rudolph is a free agent, and so I think he's gone. And kind of more reason, like when we talk about the next slide here, and like what to look forward to with free agent targets or draft picks. That's I think even more reason you draft a quarterback. Will Levis is the backup now, and you just hang on to him until his contract's done, or you can cut him or whatever. But what's going to be interesting to me though is I do see a lot of front 7 guys that are going to be free agents. Sebastian Joseph Day, Jerome Baker, Jack Gibbons as well, James Lynch, Keandre Coburn. So it's one area of the defense that the team that I thought was pretty solid still was that defensive front 7. They gave up a lot of rushing yards, yes, but they also were down a significant amount of those games. And like you said, I like Devondre Sweat up front. He's a massive dude. Justin Simmons, and then who was the other guy?
Jeffrey
Harold
Simmons.
Landry, Jeffrey Simmons. Sorry, Harold Landry had 9 sacks. He led the team in sacks. I think he had 6.5. So there are some interesting players then too as well. So how are they going to replace some of these other like additional role players? To kind of go along with that. And so that's why to me, like quarterback's already one that we talked about. Got to replenish the wide receivers. Offensive line is still going to be an improvement, but I think they want to add on some of those like sack production to help out with like the meaty guys in the middle. And so getting Harold Landry, a running mate, to go along with that, I think could be a sneaky other option as well for this team.
Yeah, no, and like I these are mostly role players, and so it's not like they're losing, in my opinion, like any of the stars on that, like on that team. But these are the guys, like these are kind of the
Yeah.
meat and potato guys. And as we move forward into the draft and offseason needs, these are guys that could be pretty easily replaced with guys that fit well into their
Yeah.
system. So how much cap space do they have? I forget.
So Titans going into the offseason, thank you for bringing that up. Titans going into the offseason, according to Over the Cap, and let me refresh this page right here, but they are sitting at 61.257 million in cap. And so, but about 43 million effective. So I think like with other
Mhm.
commitments or guarantees or dead money that they kind of go into that as well. So pretty decent bit. There's a couple of guys I think that they could, uh, uh, they could increase that money through restructuring contracts or potential some cap casualties as well. But they have some maneuverability in here, I think, to bring in some interesting guys. Like T. Higgins
Yeah.
is going to be the one. We have a similar slide deck for every single team, and for free agent targets, T. Higgins is going to be on probably a vast majority of those. He's
Yeah.
probably the main free agent target. I think coming into this class, it's not as great of a free agent class. But last year's those was just so epic. With Saquon and Derrick Henry hitting free agency, you had all the
Yeah.
quarterbacks being moved as well. So very interesting. But I think a sneaky one though too, if they want to help out in the secondary, DJ Reed, I think, would be a great compliment over there with L'Jarius Sneed as well. Carlton Davis, he's going to be free agent also. Chase Young, Matt Judon, I think going to be some edge rushers in there as well.
Yeah, and to me, so with 61 million, especially you're not going to go after a quarterback, you could definitely kind of dive into some really nice pieces to upgrade. Like Josh Sweat is a guy at edge that we also didn't include that I think could definitely be in there. Like there's just a lot of really good corners. Charvarius Ward is another corner there that we didn't include either. Darius Slayton, another wide receiver. So Stephon Diggs, him and Calvin Ridley, I think are fairly similar, but it wouldn't be bad to have two of those guys. So
Yeah.
all in all, like this is a decent free agency class. It's not great, but I think it's decent, especially when you're looking to kind of beef up in the trenches and maybe replace some role players. I think there's definitely guys that can come out and do that. But free agency is not going to be the big talking point for the Tennessee Titans. It is definitely going to be what they're going to do with that first overall pick. As you can see on the right with some of the draft targets, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, going to be at the top of the list. Ted McMillan is there. He's the top receiver. So like if they do decide to maybe trade for a quarterback or sign one in free agency, go the Sam Darnold route or a Justin Fields route, they could potentially go after a guy like Ted McMillan and get him there. But all in all, I think it's going to come down to which of the two quarterbacks they fancy the most. I'm more of a Cam Ward guy. You're more of a Shedeur Sanders guy. And so I think that's going to be a fun debate that's going to be happening all through this offseason. Day 2, they're going to be picking at the top of the second round as well. If James Pierce Jr. falls, that would be, I think, a good compliment on the other side of Harold Landry or Arden Key. And then Siobhan Ravel get a tall, extremely athletic corner. He's going to fall because he's coming off a torn ACL, but I think that's just going to be a really good value there, because that would be a guy that would be going much higher in the first round.
Yeah. And with them, they have 2, 4, 6, 8 picks as of right now, according to Tankathon. Some of those, like maybe if they get a comp, depending on if actually they're definitely probably going to get a comp with Derrick Henry moving on based on that contract. So that might actually even be an additional third round comp because he got a pretty hefty contract from that. So we'll have to kind of monitor to see where that comp comes from. But so 8 to 9, potentially even 10 picks if there's other comps that come in there, or if there's other potential trades the Titans will have to go with. And it's going to be interesting to see, because if they do go quarterback over like first overall, which I'm highly expecting them to do as right now. They've invested in the offensive line, with Peter Skoronski, J.C. Latham over the past couple of years. They do still have Calvin Ridley there, but it is Nashville. No state income tax. I think a lot of receivers or players just might want to come to play there as well. Some good offensive linemen that I think they could get at very affordable. Did you mention Trey Smith out of Kansas City?
I did not.
Yes, so Trey Smith out of Kansas City. They want to keep bolstering that offensive line to help protect your young quarterback, whether it's Will Levis or Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. So I think Tennessee Titans are in a good position as of right now, all things considered. There are some positives that you can take from, and you are still picking first overall from the season.
Yeah.
So in general, not super phenomenal, but not the worst thing. Not as bad as the Cleveland Browns, who's picking number 2.
Yeah, no, definitely. And also I think you look at the situation the Tennessee Titans are in with being in that AFC South division. There's not, like, I know everybody expected the Texans to come in and be a world beater, and CJ Stroud is definitely the best quarterback in that division, but looks like Jacksonville might be going through a pseudo rebuild. Indianapolis seems to be doubling down on Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard. So I think that division is going to be totally up for grabs next year. You come in, make some good signings, make some good picks. Brian Callahan grows in his second year, and I think that all of a sudden the Tennessee Titans could be contending for the division.
Yeah.
So
who knows?
I know that might be a overly positive outlook on the Tennessee Titans going into 2025, but again, this is the time for fans to be hopeful. This is the time where we get to be armchair GMs, armchair draftees, and or armchair drafters, not draftees. But you can play Madden to be an armchair draftee. But yeah, I think this is a good time for fans. A lot of hope, I think, going forward for the Tennessee Titans. Let's go ahead. Let's wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of the Tennessee Titans 2024 season and what you want to see them do going forward into 2025 offseason. And other than that, we'll see you guys next time.